history.
Me and Brandon, top 10 wide receivers in football. This is going to be great. Brandon, I want you to start. We could go 1-1. So you could get. Actually, I want you to start with giving me your top 5.
Top 5. Okay, my number 1 has been the guy who's been consistent or just regarded as the best receiver in the NFL for the past 3, maybe 4 years. That's Devante Adams. He's going to a new team. I really am curious to see how that goes, but just based on talent, production, over the past 4 years, no one's done it better than Devante Adams. My number 2 was the best receiver of last NFL season. Historic numbers on all levels. Just the guy went crazy. It was Cooper Kupp. My 3rd, as you said, you and I have said it on countless occasions over the past few years, the best weapon in football, not even best receiver, just best weapon in football, Tyreek Hill. The guy opens up an offense in ways I've never seen before. Number 4, probably the best young wide receiver in the NFL, Justin Jefferson. I mean, the guy has completely changed the way the Vikings play. He's one of the most elusive route runners in the NFL, and he's great on jump balls. He's great on 50-50 balls. Number 5 is the guy who's one of the main reasons the Bengals won the Super Bowl. They went from the least explosive offense to the most explosive offense, and the reason behind that, number 1, Jamar Chase. He's my number 5. That's my top 5.
In what world is Devante Adams ahead of Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp. Devante Adams has been better over the long term.
Cooper Kupp is coming off the greatest season of a wide receiver possibly in NFL history. He nearly had 2,000 yards. He had 16 touchdowns, and Devante Adams is doing this all with Aaron Rodgers. He had a down year. Cooper Kupp just had better numbers than Devante Adams has had in his entire career. I don't see a world in which you put Devante Adams over him right now.
I'm saying Devante Adams right now because he's been better over a long term, whereas Cooper Kupp, coming into last season, I don't like to use this debate, was seen as an afterthought.
I mean, was he seen as a guy who's performed but been injured? Yeah. In 2019, he had 1,100 yards. That's a great season. Yeah. He was hurt a lot of 2020, and 2021, he just had the best year ever. I don't see how a guy comes off a season like that, and you see a guy like Devante Adams, you know he could put up 1,300 yards like that in any given season, but the season Cooper Kupp just had is special. It's something Devante Adams could not do. He didn't do it with Aaron Rodgers. He didn't do it as the sole weapon on his team, and now Devante Adams going to a new team. I don't see how you could put him below
production and talent. Over the past half decade, Devante Adams has been doing it better than anyone else in the NFL.
Ready for this? I have Justin Jefferson at 2, above Devante Adams 2. Justin Jefferson, in his 2 seasons as an NFL receiver, has had 1,400 yards, and by the way, playing 16 games only, and 1,600 yards. Those are numbers better than Devante Adams in the last 2 seasons, and he's only a second-year player. In 2 seasons, he's had 2 better seasons than Devante Adams. In his second year, he had more yards than Devante Adams has ever had, and he's still climbing. So, once again, with Kirk Cousins.
Fair take.
And Adam Thielen. So I know Devante Adams is great. I know people think of him when they think of number 1 receiver in football, they think Adams. But really, when you dissect the play of Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp, I know that they haven't been as good over the past 5 years because one of them's only been in the league 2 years. Sure. But I think if you're looking right now, those 2 are higher than Devante Adams in my wide receiver hierarchy.
I personally just disagree on the basis that Devante Adams has been consistently better over a long period of time, but I agree with what you said about Cooper Kupp. You can't really hold how long he's been in the league against.
And then how about Tyreek Hill over Justin Jefferson? Tyreek Hill had a down year. Justin Jefferson in his 2 biggest seasons have had more yards. In his only 2 seasons, he had the most and right behind Tyreek Hill's biggest season, which was in 2018.
I personally just look at Tyreek Hill as a whole different. I almost wanted to not include Tyreek Hill in this list and just have him in a tier of his own. But that being said, I feel like it'd be almost a crime to not put him in top 3 just because of his impact on a team and how he just opens up an offense for his guy.
So I have Tyreek Hill at 5. Okay. My 4 is Jamar Chase. Okay. Here's why. It's really tough to rank a rookie. Yeah. Because we've only seen 1 year of experience. But the year Jamar Chase just had
historic.
Was better than any year Tyreek Hill's had in his career. That includes 2018, where he had 1,400 yards. Because Jamar Chase just had 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns as a rookie, where we saw some games where he didn't do much. He caught a lot of balls. He didn't make mistakes. He had those deep touchdowns.
He did make mistakes.
He had those deep touchdowns that Tyreek Hill has without Tyreek Hill's special speed, while also making catches that a number 1 receiver not out of the slot makes. I have Jamar Chase over Tyreek Hill for those reasons, and I also have Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp, 2 young guys who are not Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson's young, but Cooper Kupp, who's only had 1 big year, above Devante Adams, because what they've done in the past year was better than what Devante Adams and Tyreek Hill have done in their careers.
I feel like I disagree on that. Just you have to like look as an overview, like at like for at least my 1 and 3, like the consistency of their careers. I mean, like you look at Devante Adams, been great over 5 years. Tyreek Hill, like you.
So are you faulting Justin Jefferson and
no, I'm not faulting
Jamar Chase for their age?
No, not at all. I'm just saying over like you have to look over like a grand scheme.
But I don't see why, because there's no more grand scheme. Do you want to look at college? Do you want to look at how good Jamar Chase and Jay Jettas were at LSU? Because that's the only record we have them 3 years ago. I think if you're looking at players right now, yes, we want to be biased and think about, okay, Tyreek Hill's been a staple of my fantasy team for 5 years. Yes, Devante Adams has been great for 4 years. But Cooper Kupp just had the greatest season ever, and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in their whole careers, yes, it's only 1 year, yes, it's only 2 years, have been better than Tyreek Hill and Devante Adams at their primes, and they're still getting better. So, yes, I did put Jamar Chase behind Adams because it's only 1 year, and we've seen Adams do close to what Jamar did many times, but I think that it's not crazy to have Jamar over Tyreek Hill, and I think that putting Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp over Devante Adams is what definitely should happen.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair take. You want to give 6 through...
Yeah, sure.
So, here or no?
Sure. So at my 6, Stephon Diggs. Mm-hmm. Stephon Diggs was great in Minnesota. Then he went to Buffalo and just had 2 of his best years. He had 1,500 yards 2 years ago. Plus last year he had 1,200. Yes, Josh Allen's a great quarterback, but Stephon Diggs is a perfect fit for him. I have Stephon Diggs as my 6. And by the way, this little tier of Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen is like hard to rank between the 4 of them. They're all kind of older guys. And what's most difficult for me isn't ranking the 4 of them. It's like where to put younger guys like Debo and CeeDee Lamb and DK Metcalf within the guys. So I'll get to that, but Stephon Diggs is my 6.
My 6, DeAndre Hopkins. This is a guy that, although he's coming off an off year, for the past literal, I think, like 8 years, maybe even a decade, has been arguably the best receiver in football. The stats speak for themselves. He's the best just end zone threat in the NFL. He's the best 50-50 guy in the NFL. He doesn't drop the ball. Like, he doesn't, like, his only mistakes you can really point to are some pass interference calls, but he's even gotten better about that. His biggest issue has been injuries. He missed the majority of last season. But as a career as a whole, he's arguably the most accomplished guy.
Yeah, I mean, I started with DeAndre Hopkins like my 11. I was thinking like, okay, he's coming off a year where he was hurt. He has the 6-game suspension. Who knows what's happening with him? And as I kept thinking more about, he crept up my list. He's my 7. My 6 is Mike Evans. Mm-hmm. Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards in every single season of his NFL career. That is insane, and I know I'm not trying to play injuries against guys, but the fact that he's been healthy and played enough to get 1,000 yards every season with both Jameis Winston and Tom Brady, with however many weapons are around him, is insane. That consistency needs to be celebrated. So I have him as my 6, with DeAndre Hopkins as my 7. As you said it, DeAndre Hopkins had a 4-year stretch where he had 1,300 yards, 1,500 yards, 1,100 yards, and 1,400 yards.
Horrible quarterback play, too.
Yeah, so I'm not going to blame him too much for his injury. I will put Diggs over him because I think Diggs is elite. I think out of that group, Diggs is the best one now. And I'm going to put Mike Evans over him just because I think Mike Evans' consistency needs to be celebrated. But then Hopkins is my 7.
Mm-hmm. My 7 personally...
What was your 6?
My 6 was Hopkins.
Oh,
my
yeah.
7's Diggs. Stephon Diggs, you introduced him better than like anyone else, I think. Just he was good in Minnesota. Then him and Josh Allen have one of those connections that you look at and it's like perfect. He busted onto the scene last year and had, I think you said 1,600 yards.
Wait, so can you talk to me for a second about why do you have Hopkins over Diggs?
I've heard just over like the long-term consistency.
I mean, I think Diggs has been pretty consistent long-term in the past 2 years. Considering that 2 years, the last 2 years, 2 years ago, DeAndre Hopkins had 1,400 yards, and Diggs had a better season than him still. So I think the fact that Diggs had better years the last 2 years, plus the 2 years before that, he was a 1,000-yard receiver, and DeAndre Hopkins is on a completely different team. I don't think that needs to necessarily be so much into our debate. So I think Diggs, no doubt, I'm putting over Hopkins.
Yeah, maybe on like production, but also like you got to look at like talent. DeAndre Hopkins was seen as the best receiver in the NFL 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Before like Devante Adams and like Cooper Kupp, you could argue bust on the scene. It was DeAndre. It went from Julio to D Hop
and
to Devante
AB.
to whoever it is now. AB, Julio AB to D Hop to Devante to whoever you have now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think whoever was the best receiver 4 years ago necessarily needs to come into my conversation too much of who's a better receiver now. We're not looking at legacy of the players. We're looking at who's a better receiver now. And yes, sometimes
so the production's still there if he was just hurt.
But I think Diggs' production has been better the last 2 years.
It's been similar, honestly. If you look at it, it really has.
It's been similar but better. And last year was insanely better. Yes, that was an injury.
Well, he was hurt for
I know, but even when he was playing, he wasn't insanely good. Regardless, 2 years ago, Diggs was better too. Yeah. So I'll leave it there. Brandon, let's keep it going with your list.
My 8 through 10 was really hard to place because at first Mike Evans was like my 10, but then I looked at Deebo Samuel, who had an historic year. Like, I feel like you have to include Deebo on this list just based on the fact that, like, last year he played multiple positions. He was arguably the only reason that the Niners had the success they had. They have good defense, but offensively, he was their biggest piece. Everything ran through Deebo, and I think he was their guy. He had a historic year. 9, can I go through mine real quick? My 9, A.J. Brown. Just, he's one of those guys that the talent is just there. After the catch, he's the best in the league. He's great at contested catches. He's done great things even when Tannehill's been bad. I think he has a slight fall off this year. I don't love Jalen Hurts as much as I have in the past. My 10's Mike Evans. Him and my 9, I should probably switch. I actually,
Mike Evans behind A.J. Brown.
Yeah, I'm going to switch that. That doesn't look as good as it did last time.
You were bruising for a cruising there.
Yeah, Mike Evans, I think, is my 9. A.J. Brown's my 10. Mike Evans, like you said, has been consistent. His biggest flaw, kind of like Deandre Hopkins, has just been injuries.
Yeah, so I'll go with mine. I'll start with Deebo. Deebo's my 9. The reason I have him there is because Deebo kept moving back on my list. He started at 6, and the more and more I thought about it, he had one good year, which is similar to Jamar Chase, but he had 2 bad years before that. A lot of what he did is in the rushing game. He only had 6 receiving touchdowns. Yeah. So I'm still putting him at 9 because of that 1,400-yard year last year and because we know what he's capable of. But that's why I kept moving down my list. My 10's Keenan Allen. Yeah. Keenan Allen I put in that same tier just right behind Mike Evans and DeAndre Hopkins because he's been a model of consistency. He's had not only 1,000 yards, but I think around 1,200 yards like the past 4 years. He's just been utterly dominant. He had 1,100 yards, 900 yards, and then he had 1,200 yards 2 years in a row and 1,400 5 years ago. So yes, I'm going a lot into the past, but he's just been so consistent, and I give them points for that.
And do you want to give honorable mention?